Okay, restoration. We're 29 chapters in. 29 chapters in Genesis. That's where we're at. That's where we find ourselves today. We're in chapter 30 of Genesis. We've been going at this for 29 weeks. We took a 1 week break for Easter, but before that, it was Genesis, and we've been here for 29 weeks. Maybe you've forgotten everything that we've done so far. There has been a lot in 29 chapters, hasn't there? There's been a whole heck of a lot that we've gone through. And so I want to just, before we really dive into chapter 30, I thought maybe we would just start with what's gone on in 29 chapters. Maybe you're new to restoration. Maybe you're new to the church. Maybe you just started watching. Maybe you just started listening. I don't know what it is. But maybe you're like, boy, I would really love to have some context. Well, you're in luck because we're going to cover 29 chapters in the next 5 to 7 minutes. We started in Genesis 1. We did 1 through 11. That series we called, do you remember what we called that? That escalated quickly. We started it in chapter 1, which is a great place to start when you're doing a book study. Start at the very beginning. I believe there is a song that says that, actually. So we started in chapter 1, and we did that escalated quickly. Then we moved on to chapter 12 after we got through those 11, and 12 through 26 was called Promises. All about the promises that God made to Abraham and how those played out in his life. And we're seeing them continually play out today, even though Abraham is gone. And then we've got 27 to where we're at now, which is a new series called Why This Family? And why do we call it Why This Family? Well, because when I was reading through this series, when I was reading through these chapters, I thought, why? Why this family? Why did God choose this family? Why did God choose the line of Jacob, the line of these 12 tribes of Israel, from his dad Isaac to his dad Abraham? Why did God choose this family to be the one that Jesus would come from? Why did he choose this family to be the line from Jesus? It doesn't make sense to me, especially reading through these chapters. It's starting to flesh out, and you're starting to see what's going on. You see, in the first 11 chapters, if I could sum it up this way, in those first 11 chapters, we had a broad overview of what was going on in the world. That's why we called it That Escalated Quickly. We had creation, we had Adam and Eve, we had Cain and Abel. And then it kind of blew up from there. We have this wide shot of what's happening in the world around them at this time. And so in those first 11 chapters that ends with the Tower of Babel, we've got this very large picture of events that are going on. It's like looking at a house online, right? If you're buying a house, you want to check out what houses are available, all that kind of stuff. You got to see the market. You can see all these different houses, and you can look at, you're like, oh man, I really like that picture right there of that house. So you click on the link and you start looking through the photos, and you think you really get a good handle on what the house is going to look like. You're like, okay, there's the bedrooms. When we were looking for houses, my wife was like placing everything. Okay, if that picture has that doorway in it, you can kind of see where the refrigerator is, and then you take this picture over here, and I think we can piece them together, and that might be like where the living is. So you come in here. We do lots of weird stuff like that whenever we look for houses, and you look at this house online, and then you go and actually visit the house, right? And when you go and see the house, man, it's up close, and you get to see all the dents in the house, all of the things that are wrong, the floorboards that are non-existent, or the roof that needs to be replaced, or the windows that are cracked, which you can hide, right? You can hide that a little bit in photos, but man, when you see it in person, it's a completely different story. So basically what Genesis 1 through 11 was this wide picture, this wide shot of the house. Here's everything that's going on. Here's how the house got here. And then now let's zoom in. Now we're going to zoom into this house. We're actually going to take a tour of this house and see what's happening in the life of Abraham. It's like when you meet somebody for the first time and you're like, oh man, that's a really cool person. I want to get to know them some more. And then you find out later on, well, I don't think I want to get to know that person. They're kind of crazy. It's something similar to that. You get to know somebody from a distance, and then it's like, well, I guess I should. I mean, the first meeting was pretty cool. Maybe we'll talk to them again, and so you go and talk to them again, and then more and more you get to know the person and find out they're not that cool, or maybe they're extremely cool. But whatever it is, you get to know that person more. So that's where we're at in this series. We're getting to know this family a little bit more, warts and all, and we're getting to see everything that this family had to go through. That's how I can know that the Bible is true. That's how I can know that the Bible isn't going to withhold anything from me. Because if they're willing to print that, if they're willing to put that in the story of the line of Jesus, then maybe this thing is worth trusting. If I'm going to write something, and I don't want, and I want it to inspire people, and I want it to reflect well on me, you know what I'm not going to do? Put on all the crap in my life. I'm going to put the best stuff in there. And so we have this series of Why This Family. Now, to kind of get us to where we're at today, we had Adam and Eve. We had Cain and Abel. Those were the sons of Adam and Eve. And then Cain killed Abel, and that was a whole thing. I mean, it was chapter 4 if you want to look it up. And then they have some more kids after that, and some more kids. And then eventually it leads to this guy named Noah. Noah and his wife and his 3 sons, they went into this thing called a boat. You might have heard that story before. They go into the boat, and they are saved. While the entire earth is flooded, God told Noah, hey, build this boat. It's going to rain. There's going to be a flood. Noah's like, I have no idea what rain is. I have no idea what a flood is, but sounds good. I'm in. So he builds the boat. Had never rained before, never flooded before, and now they've got this flood. They leave the boat. God finally remembers them, it says, and he leaves the boat, him and his family, and then, they get some more kids. That eventually leads to some dude named Abram. And now I've got a family tree that I want to show you. I don't know if you can see this or not, but I'll explain, okay? So Noah is somewhere like way up here. His family finally leads to this guy named Terah. He had children, at least 4 kids: Haran, Nahor, Sarai, and Abram. Now Sarai was a half sibling to Abram. And those 2 got married. The half-siblings got married because this is some weird Kentucky stuff here. And then they have Isaac. He also, when Sarah wasn't able to have kids, she said, hey, take Hagar and have a child. Maybe that's what God means by this blessing, that you guys are going to have a kid. So they have Ishmael, and those have the Ishmaelites. And then Sarah and Abram finally have a child named Isaac. Remember, that was a pretty big deal. Abraham was almost 100 years old. Sarah was like 90. They have Isaac, and then God says, go sacrifice Isaac. And Abram's like, I don't know if I can do that. His name gets changed to Abraham, and he doesn't actually end up sacrificing Isaac, if you were here for that. And then Isaac needs to get married. So Abram sends his servant over to Nahor's house and says, hey, we need a wife for this guy Isaac. It's a long journey. Bethuel has 2 kids named Laban and Rebekah. He finds Laban and Rebekah both. Rebekah goes with the servant to marry Isaac. Isaac and Rebekah have 2 children named Jacob and Esau, which is where we are at today. Jacob, remember, steals the birthright with some soup from Esau. Esau is the firstborn. Jacob is the secondborn. They're twins. And Jacob stole the birthright. He stole the blessing. Esau started hating him. And so Jacob's like, I guess it's time to go find a wife. Actually, Rebekah said that to Jacob. Go find a wife. Go back to my hometown. Go to my people. My brother Laban, he'll take care of you. And find a wife there. So Jacob goes over to Laban, and he finds Rachel, falls in love with Rachel. We talked about that last week. He tried kissing her. He did kiss her, and then he wept aloud. It was really weird. And then, there's a whole switcheroo that happens in the wedding, and Jacob ends up marrying Leah accidentally after 7 years, and then has to work another 7 for Rachel. And then it ended on 29 with Leah having 4 children, Rachel not having any. And Leah was the less loved one. She was just kind of there. She was just some baggage that came along, right? Laban just wanted to get rid of his 2 daughters, to get married off, and he wanted to increase his value, increase his farm, increase everything that he had. So he had Jacob work for him for 7 years, and then another 7 years for Rachel. So Jacob has sex with Leah. Sorry if I'm being crass. They have 4 children. And that is where we find ourselves today. And like with most siblings, there's a healthy competition that's running. You know how siblings get. There's always this competition between siblings, especially if you have older siblings or younger siblings or twins. It doesn't matter the age of your siblings because you always are competing, it seems like. My brother Mike and I would compete all of the time. Yeah, that same brother Mike that I talked about last week. We would play on the trampoline together. We would play this game called interception. You would throw the football up in the air on the trampoline. Whoever caught it would have to run back and forth on the trampoline, very small trampoline, and you had to get tackled. That was interception. We loved playing that game. It was always had to deal with competition. There was one competition that involved an aluminum bar, and my brother Mike said, go down to the bottom of that hill. I'm going to see how close I can get to you with this bar. Not like just walking to you. I'm going to throw it and see if I can get close to you with it. And I don't know, I'm the younger brother, so I say, sure, why not? Let's try that. Let's do it. Mike throws the bar. He's at the top of the hill. I'm at the bottom, and I'm thinking, it's getting pretty close. Instead of being like a normal kid and ducking or getting out of the way, I stood there, and the bar comes flying at me, hits me here, swings around, hits me in the back of the head. So if you want to know about why I am the way that I am today, there it is. There it probably is. And the competition didn't stop there. Sibling rivalry. It's a thing that happens. And now this is what's going on with Leah and Rachel. Leah has more kids than Rachel. In fact, they're keeping score. And we're going to find that out here in chapter 30, that they are very much so keeping score. Leah has 4 children. Rachel has 0. And don't you think that Leah's going to rub that in Rachel's face, at least a little bit? You're the pretty one, right? You're the one that everybody loves. You're the one that Jacob worked for. Well, guess who's got more kids? That's right, me. That's what Leah's saying. So the score is 4-0 when we pick up in verse 1 of chapter 30. That was a good little recap, I think. Took a bit of time, but here we go. Verse 1, when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister. That sibling rivalry. She said to Jacob, give me children or I shall die. Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, am I in the place of God who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb? All right. Off on a pretty terrible start for the first 2 verses. Here's what's going on. Rachel's getting really mad because she doesn't have any kids, and maybe she's starting to get looks. Maybe people around the camp are starting to say some things. Maybe Leah's been flaunting it in front of her. Maybe she brings all of her kids around to the family dinner table and makes sure that they're sitting next to to Rachel. Maybe Rachel's been hearing some talk behind closed doors of what's going on. Oh, Rachel, she's the pretty one, and Jacob really worked hard for her, but so far Leah's the only one that's offering children to Jacob. Maybe there's something wrong with Rachel. So she starts getting looks. She starts getting questions. She starts getting these little whispers all around town, all around camp. She can't go anywhere without a little whispering going on behind her. She goes to the grocery store. There's whispers. She goes to church. There's whispers. She goes and sees maybe her, I don't know what you would call them. Would they be their niece if it's still with the, I don't know what that would be, step kids? I don't know. The kids. Maybe they've got some sporting events that they're going to go to, and so Rachel's trying to put on a face and go see whatever's going on. Doesn't want to be there. And everybody sees Rachel with no kids. So what does anybody do when things are going not so well for you? When people are starting to talk about you? When you feel that anxiety welling up? When things in life are not quite the way that you would ever envision them to be? When you wanted life to go the way that you wanted it to go, and so far those pieces just aren't falling where you thought they would? What does anybody do? Well, they lash out to the people closest to them, don't they? I know whenever I'm feeling anxious about the church, whenever I'm feeling anxious, or I feel like I preached a bad sermon, or I have to have a tough meeting with someone, or anything that is rough that goes on in my life, you know who gets the brunt of that? My family. Why do we do that? Why is it always those that are closest to us that take the brunt of our anger, the brunt of our anxiety, the brunt of our sadness, the brunt of our expectations not being met? We take it out on them. See, Rachel's probably mad at God at this point, but she's taking it out on Jacob. God can handle whatever conversation we need to have with him. He can handle us going to him and saying, boy, I'm really not happy with the way that my life is right now. And he'll probably say, well, what'd you do? Rachel's mad at God, but she takes it out on her husband. Let's keep going. Verse 3. Then she said, here's my servant Bilhah. Go into her, so that she may give birth on my behalf, that I may have children through her. So she's going to take matters into her own hands, just like a great-great-grandparent of hers, or I guess it wouldn't be a grandparent, relative of hers. I don't even know what it would be. I'm going to stop trying to do that. Sarah. I'm just going to tell you, Sarah, when she decided that she was going to have Hagar have a child for her and Abraham, thinking, well, I'm not going to be able to have kids, so it might as well be Hagar, I guess. She's my servant, so we'll make her have a kid, and I'll be kind of the surrogate mom. It didn't turn out that way. They had Ishmael, but it didn't turn out that way. And so basically, Rachel is doing the same thing. This was kind of like a customary thing. They would do that from time to time. It was practiced in that time. It doesn't mean that it was right. It doesn't mean that it was what God wanted them to do. But it's what they did. So Rachel says, I'm just going to take matters into my own hands. Instead of praying about it, instead of going to God about it, instead of talking to my husband about it and praying about it, I'm just going to give him Bilhah and see if they can have a child, and then I'll claim that child as mine. So she gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife, and Jacob went into her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Then Rachel said, God has judged me, and has also heard my voice and given me a son. Therefore she called his name Dan. Funny, because I don't remember reading anything about her going to God about this. Isn't it interesting that whenever we feel like we're blessed by something, it must be from God, and whenever something bad happens to us, it's like, why is God doing this to me? Right? I don't know. I think it's kind of weird. Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Then Rachel said, with mighty wrestlings have I wrestled with my sister, and have prevailed. So she called his name Naphtali. Wrestled with your sister? This is a competition. This is what you're doing. This is a competition. And you're taking credit for these children. You had nothing to do with this, but you're taking credit. These are now your children. You had the surrogate mom thing, and now you're calling these children your own because you want to get even with your sister. You can't stand the fact that your older sister has more kids than you, that the one that's less attractive, the one that doesn't have anything going for her has more children than you, and you can't stand that, and so you're going to keep score. But you kind of got to put an asterisk next to it, right? You kind of have to say, well, I don't know, Dan and Naphtali, they're not specifically hers, but sure, we'll put an asterisk next to it. Leah 4, Rachel 2 with an asterisk. It's like when the steroid thing was going on with baseball, right? And you had Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa slugging it out for the home run title, and you're like, okay, sure, yeah, they're hitting home runs, but are they really? I mean, like Mark McGwire, you put on like 800 pounds, it seems like. Sammy Sosa, you now look like an inflatable human of some kind. Like, I don't know what's happened to your face, but something weird is going on with your face. And they just started using steroids like crazy to try to compete with one another. One started using steroids, then the other one starts using steroids. Next thing you know, the ball's flying out of the ballpark like nothing else. I mean, it seems like you could just hit a home run with one arm at this point. So there's an asterisk next to all of these guys who were playing baseball at this time, and there was a big controversy about it. So basically, Rachel's using steroids. So verse 9, when Leah saw that she had ceased bearing children, she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Okay, see? Escalation. Escalation. You've got, Leah's already got 4 kids of her own. Somehow, for some reason, she's not having kids anymore. She sees that Rachel used a surrogate to have 2 kids of her own, and so now she's like, okay, if that's the way this game's going to be played, give me the steroids. Zilpah, you're going to be with my husband now. Then Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son. And Leah said, good fortune has come. So she called his name Gad. Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. And Leah said, happy am I, for women have called me happy. So she called his name Asher. So now Leah gets an asterisk next to her 2 sons, Gad and Asher. She stoops to the same level as her sister. She was once satisfied in praising God. She was once satisfied at the end of 29. She said, I'm done trying to look at getting affection from my husband. I'm done trying to play this race of getting ahead with my sister. I'm done playing this race of who's going to love me more. Or can Jacob love me more than my sister Rachel? And she's like, I'm just going to revert to praising God. It's what I should have done in the beginning, and that's what I'm going to do now. How quickly, in 13 verses, I don't know how many years that's been. It's been a few. You go from praising God, now she's back to competing with her sister. He's backslid a whole bunch, and I think there's a warning in there for us too. We have these high moments, right? Where like, man, I love God so much. I love Jesus. I love what He's doing in my life. We go to this retreat. We have this big thing, and then on a year from now, we're like, back in the same spot. I'm backsliding again. We maybe a pandemic hits, and so we stopped going to church. We stopped going to services. We stopped gathering together as people, and we're like, I'll just watch it online. Because it's more convenient, and I know that we can't get in groups together, and so at the beginning of the pandemic, and so I'll just catch the service online. And so you're watching the service every Sunday faithfully. You're like, okay, 9:30 a.m. That's when the service starts. That's when I'll be there. So 9:30 in the morning comes around, and you watch the service, and then maybe a few weeks later, you're like, I stayed out way too late on Saturday night. I got a little bit drunk. Not too much, just a little bit drunk, and I just need to sleep in. So maybe you miss it, but you're like, you know what? I can catch it anytime. I can catch that service anytime. So you watch it maybe on Monday, maybe on Tuesday. And then you start really loving having those weekends all to yourself. And so you start planning this thing out, and now you're not even showing up to your small groups anymore. You're not even showing up to watch the service online. You kind of stopped following whatever the church was doing, and you've kind of disconnected yourself. And now you've got all this other influence from all these other people that are talking to you about life and sharing their political opinions and sharing about how terrible the world is. And you slowly get sucked back into that lifestyle, to that world, to those comments. And what started out as such a strong race, now you're barely a flicker. Perhaps Leah was getting busy with the children, and she'll praise God another time. There'll be another time for this. God starts moving down the ladder of things of importance. Instead of fighting for Him to be at the top, we just keep making excuses. And we wonder why we're not happy and why life isn't going the way we thought it would. So Leah's got this score now of 6 with an asterisk. Rachel still has the 2 with an asterisk. I don't know. What a sad state we find ourselves in now. Don't worry, it gets worse. In the days of wheat harvest, Reuben went, that's Leah's son Reuben, went and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your son's mandrakes. Now I got to tell you what mandrakes are all about here, okay? Mandrakes are they're kind of like a fruit that would grow in the Middle East, and the root of them was kind of looked like a human. So it looks like a human. In this time frame, in this period, they considered it to be an aphrodisiac. It was also, the root of it was also when you hallucinate, What am I saying? You know what I'm trying to say. Hallucinate. There you go. I haven't said that word out loud in a long time. So it's a hallucinogen. And so coupled with this hallucinogen and the fact that it looked like a little bit like a human being, you would take this root. They thought that it had some sort of special fertility power for women. So if you had this root, not to mention if you ate too much of this root, you die, but your heart slows down and you die. But they would have this root and say, oh man, if I just have this root, if I just do this, then I am going to have some children. So Reuben finds the mandrake. Rachel's like, ooh, give me some of your son's mandrake. Leah, but she said to her, is it a small matter that you have taken away my husband? Would you take away my son's mandrakes also? Rachel said, then he may lie with you tonight in exchange for your son's mandrakes. When Jacob came from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, you must come in to me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes. So he lay with her that night. And God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. Leah said, God has given me my wages because I gave my servant to my husband. So she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again, and she bore Jacob a sixth son. Then Leah said, God has endowed me with a good endowment. Now my husband will honor me because I have borne him 6 sons. So she called his name Zebulun. Afterward, she bore a daughter and called her name Dinah. So Rachel has basically become a pimp at this point. If you didn't think you'd ever hear that in a sermon, once again, it revolves around food. She wants this mandrake because she thinks it's going to give her children in some form, and she's like, fine, go have sex with Jacob as long as I get the mandrakes. So she's telling Jacob to go have sex with Leah, and she's going to get paid for it. You know what that is, right? I just said it. So Jacob goes, and I don't know. It sounds crass, at least a little bit crass, right? All of this verbiage of he's going into her, all that kind of stuff. I don't know why I just repeated that. I just want to point out that in chapter 4, it says that Adam knew his wife Eve, and she had Cain, and then Abel. He knew his wife, and in all of these descriptions, in chapter 29 and in chapter 30, never does it say that he knew Leah, he knew Rachel. It was always, he just went into her. And that's crass, and I think it's crass for a reason, because they're using him for sex, and he's like, well, cool. This wasn't God's design for sex. I mean, and this is a direction I don't necessarily need to take it, but I just want to point that out. I think it's important to point out that there's so much more to sex than just what we're seeing here. And it's why it's so important to save it for marriage, first of all. And then once you're in a marriage relationship, just one and another. We treat it just like a transaction, and that's basically what's happening here. Is it's transactional. Regardless, the score is now Leah 9 and Rachel 2, and I have a lot more to go. Verse 22, Then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son and said, God has taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph, saying, May the Lord add to me another son. So she gets the one son. His name is Joseph. He plays a pretty big part later on in this in this book. But immediately she's saying, may the Lord add to me another son. Like, okay, I've got one. Now let's get another one. And isn't that always the way it goes? Whenever we see something that we want, scoreboard is now 9-3, and then we get that thing that we want, and now it's immediately like, oh, that actually didn't satisfy me the way that I thought it would. I need something else. I need something else. So it's 9-3. 12 kids. There's one more that's going to be born a little bit later on. We're not going to get to that today. And this is how the tribes of Israel are started. This is the line of Jesus. I don't know. I don't know if you had a different thought on how that was going to play out, how Jesus was going to come to be, but he comes from a family of infighting and people not getting along. Now the story goes on in 25 through 42. We're not going to read all of it because it takes a while to get through, and we're running out of time. But essentially, what happens is Jacob has been here now 14 plus years, and Laban wants him to stay because Jacob is making him rich. Laban understands that God is using Jacob, that God is blessing Jacob, and so just by his association with Jacob, he's being blessed, and so his crops are good. He's growing his business. He's got more animals, and he's not paying for labor at this point. So he's really ahead. He's really in the black. Jacob finally says, you know what? I need to go. I've got 12 kids now. It's time for me to branch out on my own. I've got to take my 2 wives, my 12 children, all of my servants, all that kind of stuff, and I just need to get out of here. It's time for me to go. So he makes a deal with Laban that says, I will take all of the blemished sheep, all the blemished animals, the ones with spots, the one with stripes, the sheep that are black, the goats that are not all singularly colored but have some spots on them. Let me take all the blemished ones, and you can keep all the really nice ones, and I'll just go with my family. And Laban was like, okay, deal, but you've got to raise up these goats. And so he lives with them for another 6 years. And what Jacob does, well, before that, Laban decides that he's going to take all the spotted sheep, all of the spotted goats, the striped goats, the blemished animals out of the flock and move them a few days away from where Jacob is. He takes one of his sons and says, hey, go take these flocks over here a few days travel away from where Jacob is, because we don't want him to go yet. It's not time for him to go. We don't want him to go. He's doing a lot for us. So Jacob has to then start from scratch again with these animals that he's got. So he does something that's pretty weird, especially in this context, and he takes tree bark and rips it open, these branches, and rips the bark off the branches, and so there's white on the branches, and he lays them in front of the animals when it's time for them to mate, and he's laying it in front of the really healthy animals, okay? So that they will have spots. And then all these animals are born with spots, with stripes, with their blemished animals. All of these pure animals are now having animals as babies that are striped and blemished. And so Jacob starts breeding all of the really healthy ones and putting the sticks in front of these really healthy ones and leaving the less healthy ones for Laban. And I don't really know what to make of that. It's pretty weird. It's a weird story. And we find out in chapter 31 that Jacob has a dream that God told him basically to do this, that there's going to be spots on these animals, that to trust him. And so that's what Jacob is doing. Now, there's a few different reasons why he's doing this. Not anybody really knows why he's actually doing it. But one reason could be because, maybe he's got some sort of prenatal idea that something in the culture, something in environment is going to make these animals have these striped things with whatever it is in front of them. Some people say it's an aphrodisiac, again, so that maybe like just by volume, he's going to have some spotted animals. Or maybe the last one is just, you know what, God told him to do this, and so that's what he did. God humored him and said, yeah, sure, put the stripes in there, or put the sticks in there, and we'll see what happens. You can read it if you want to. It's 25 through 42. And essentially, at the end of the day, it says, thus the man increased greatly and had large flocks, female servants and male servants, and camels and donkeys. Somewhere along this way, Jacob has grown in his faith. He's grown stronger in his faith. Perhaps it was in the fields, maybe it was between kids and wives, and knowing there must be more to this than just what he's doing, just getting through the day working for his father-in-law. But somewhere along this way, in this chapter, Jacob is starting to realize who God is and that he needs to follow God. And he's putting his faith in God. It says it in chapter 31. We haven't gotten there yet, but he says that God told him this in a dream, and so that's what he did. Contrast that with his wives and father-in-law. Wives are competing. Their father-in-law just wants to get richer. There's no part of God in this outside of they'll attribute to God when it's convenient. They'll attribute to God when it's really convenient for them to attribute good things to God. It's like, oh man, God is really blessing me right now. Thanks for the children. Thanks for this. Thanks for hearing me. We'll go to God when it gets bad, and we'll leave you when it's good again. Laban just wants to get close to Jacob and get the fruit of Jacob's labor and the blessing from God that's on Jacob. Laban wants a part of that, but he doesn't want the God. We always want a part of God, but we never want him to be in control of our life. Jacob, at some point in this chapter, says, I'm going to just give it all over to God. I'm going to put my trust and my faith in him. And we see the exact opposite of his family. And I think for us, we can do that same thing. We unfortunately can probably look a little bit more like Leah, like Rachel, and like Laban than we can with Jacob, who is deciding to follow Jesus, deciding to follow God. We look more like the other ones who are like, if it's convenient for me, I'll do it. I got to tell you that Jesus doesn't want to be a part of your life. He wants to be your life. We get so wrapped up in what our kids do. Like I said before, we have this ladder, and God's at the top of it for a while, especially after we have a really good experience in something. God is going to be at the top of it. But then as life goes on, maybe we have kids, and you know what? Their sports are going to take precedent over anything else that we do in the community, with the church community, whatever that looks like. You know what? My kids got soccer on Sundays now, so we're not going to be able to make it to service. And, also Thursday nights too, so I can't make it to your men's group, and so we'll see you around though, I'm sure. If it's convenient for me, maybe we'll throw a little God in sometimes. Maybe Jesus will get thrown in here and there. You know, when we can have time for it, we'll make Jesus be a part of it. We want Jesus to be a part of our lives. Yeah, Jesus is a part of my life. Yeah, man, we go to church when we can. We follow the Restoration Church on Facebook. We do their YouTube videos. We do their Instagram, you know. So, yeah, Jesus is a part of our life. Maybe it's a spouse. Maybe it's like, well, she doesn't want me to go here tonight. She doesn't want me to do this. I need to make her happy. I need to make sure that we've got kids. I've got to make sure that I get home to make dinner and all that kind of stuff. And then our spouse starts to take that spot of where Jesus is meant to be. And now our spouse becomes our God. And boy, our spouses make pretty crappy gods. Almost as bad as our kids make as gods. Like I'll sprinkle in Jesus when it's convenient. When it's time for me to sprinkle Jesus in, yes, when my wife and I have time, we'll sprinkle some Jesus in. We're not really going to talk about it that much over dinner, when we go to bed, when we wake up, any of that kind of stuff. I mean, if it just happens to come up in conversation at some point, then maybe we'll chat about Jesus. But yeah, Jesus is a part of my life. Yeah, I would say Jesus is a part of my life. Our marriage, he's a part of our marriage. Maybe we just like, oh, you know what? That's really going to help my career if I get shown being at church, if I am shown around people or giving back to the community. Maybe Jesus can help my career. Maybe Jesus could be a part of my self-image to make me look better on social media. I'm going to do pray hands. You know, I'm going to get my church on. I'm going to make sure that people see that I'm actually a pretty decent person. So I'm going to have Jesus be a part of my life because I love how people perceive someone who has Jesus as a part of your life. And when are we going to get serious? Jesus doesn't want to be a part of your life. Man, Jesus wants to be your life. He wants to be over all of your life. Jesus wants to get to a point where whatever's going on with your kids, you're going to give it to Jesus. Whatever's going on with your spouse, man, you're going to give it to Jesus. Whatever's going on at work, you're going to give it to Jesus. Whatever goes on in this country, you're just going to let Jesus rule your life. Whatever's going on in your self-image thing, you're just going to give your image over to Jesus. Matthew 6:31 through 33 says, "Therefore, do not be anxious, saying, 'What shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or what shall we wear?' For the Gentiles seek after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them all. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." We got to stop putting our marriage first, putting our spouse first, putting our kids first. What would it look like if we put Jesus first and see how it affects everything else? I'm not saying we don't spend time with our kids. I'm not saying we don't give them opportunities. I'm not saying we don't invest in our marriage, but this is going to sound crazy, but not at the expense of our relationship with Christ. If your marriage sucks right now, where's Jesus in it? If your kids are awful right now, where's Jesus in your kids? Where's Jesus in your parenting? Is he the priority, or is fixing whatever it is you've got going on the priority? And it's not going to be perfect. I mean, sin still exists in this world, and people have their own free will to do whatever they want, and it takes two people in a relationship to make it all work. And if one of them's following Jesus and the other isn't, then there's going to be issues, which is why God calls us to marry other Christians and to be together with other Christians, so that we have the same priorities, we have the same goals. Too many times we treat Jesus like this little ticket out of hell. Oh, cool, thanks. Said my prayer when I was 6 years old. I think I'm good for the rest of my life. I'll check in with you later. Maybe if I get sick or something, I'll check in. Jesus doesn't want to be a part of your life. Jesus didn't come down on this earth, live a perfect life, a holy life, separated from sin, go through everything that he went through, put nails in his hands and in his feet and a crown of thorns on his head and hang on a cross naked, a sinless person, the only person in the entire history of the world who's ever done nothing wrong, the only one who doesn't deserve death. He came down, dies a sinner's death. He's on the cross. It's embarrassing. He's naked. He's for all to see. Has all of this shame put on him. So that he gets to be included in just some parts of our life? No. Jesus did everything he did to be your life. 3 quick things. I know we're up against time. I know we're running out of it. But number 1 is our identity is in Jesus. Our identity is in Jesus. Rachel said, one more kid, and then I'll be happy. Then my husband's really going to love me. Leah was like, okay, I just got to stay ahead of my sister. We find our identities in our children and our work and our country. Our identity is in Jesus. What happens when you lose your identity is, you need to get a new credit card. But the other things that happens reminds me of the 2004 men's basketball team, the Olympic basketball team in Athens. And they were full of celebrities. I think LeBron was on this team. I think Carmelo Anthony was on the team. I'm trying to remember who else was on it. I think Allen Iverson might have been on the team. But anyway, there's all these huge NBA talented guys, and their identity was wrapped up in themselves and who they were, and if they could get ahead, like they could push their brand. They weren't in it for the team. They didn't want to play together. They didn't want to focus on winning gold. They just cared about stats, getting more points. And you know what they ended up in 2004? They got bronze medal. You might as well not even medal. How embarrassing. The country that started basketball is now getting beat by like weird Russian countries that have no business whatsoever beating the United States basketball team because they lost their identity. They lost their identity. They didn't know who they were going for, what they were, how they were going to do it. They cared more about who they were. Anytime we're putting our identity in anything other than Jesus, we're going to end up with a bronze medal. The bronze is just like, ugh, bronze. Our identity is in Jesus. Our focus is on Jesus. So if our identity is in Jesus, that means our focus is on Jesus. Our focus now is not on what's going on around us, the kids, the life, the spouse, the girlfriend, the boyfriend, the parent, whatever it is. I mean, all of those things are not bad things inherently, but when our focus gets pulled off of Jesus and onto those things, we start to lose our identity. When we start to lose our identity, then Jesus just becomes a part of our life and isn't our life. Our focus is on Jesus. The soccer team in this past Olympics, I don't know, maybe I've got Olympic fever still because I didn't really get to watch it because it was I didn't ever know what time it was on. I didn't hardly watch the Olympics at all this year, so maybe I'm missing out. But the soccer team in this year's Olympics, they were more focused on social justice issues, on things that were going on around them than what was actually needed to be transpired on the field. And guess what medal they got? Bronze. This was a team that was filled with talent. I was like, man, this Olympic team is probably one of the best Olympic teams that's ever been around, and they should win gold no problem. But their focus was other than the pitch. Soccer fans, do you like that I just said that? I'm sorry, football fans, do you like that I just said that? I know a couple things. Come on. Their focus wasn't on the field. Their focus was on so many other things. And I just got to tell you, church, that when we take our eyes off of Jesus and onto a cause, and I know we're a big community church, that we love community, we love changing the community, we love being involved in the community, but I just got to tell you, the moment we take our eyes off of Jesus and onto the cause, onto the activism, onto this social justice issue or that one, when that social justice issue takes the place of Jesus, we lose the plot of what we're supposed to be doing and who we're doing it for. I'm not saying don't be involved in social justice. I'm not saying don't be an activist, don't be this or that and see what's going on, but I am saying don't replace Jesus. You wonder why churches go off to the wayside or they lose their way, it seems like, is because they got more focused on some sort of activism than they did on Jesus Christ. Jesus says the poor will always be with you. There's always going to be another thing to do. And if we take our eyes off of him, we're going to lose our mission, we're going to lose our impact, and we're going to lose our testimony to a hurting world. Lastly, our hope is with Jesus. I don't know about you, I get wrapped up in this kind of stuff. I was really hoping that 2021 COVID would just be done. We wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. And if that was where my only hope was, I'd be pretty disappointed. And I got to tell you, there was a time when I was really hoping that that was going to be the case. And guys, I was severely disappointed when summertime rolled around, and here we are still fighting it. We put our hope in so many things other than Jesus. Leah and Rachel both put their hopes in more children. Leah so that maybe finally her husband would love her. Rachel just wanted to keep up and be better. Maybe you put your hope in the lottery. Do you know the chances of winning the lottery are 1 in 14 million? 1 in 14 million to win the lottery. Not great hope. And then 50%, I think it's like 50% of all lottery winners end up going bankrupt anyway. What's your hope in? I hope you can say that our hope is with Jesus. I got one more verse. Romans 15:13 says, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit you may abound in hope." Church, I don't know. But when our identity is in other things, when our identity is in our kids, when our focus is on our job, when our hope is on a vaccine or the lottery, there's not a whole lot of joy and peace in there, is that? In that, is there? Not much peace. Not much joy. It says, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing." We believe in Jesus when He's no longer just a part of our life, but when He is our life. We see peace and joy start flowing out of our life. That way, whenever situations arise, whenever things come up with our kids, with our relationships, with politics, with our self-image, it's like, no, man, my hope is in Jesus, and I'm going to believe in that. So I don't have anxiety, I don't have sadness, because my hope is in the one who's gone before me. Jesus isn't just a part of my life, He is my life. When we start resting in that, with the hope of God, when we start resting and believing in Him, by the power of the Holy Spirit works in us and brings hope into our lives so that we can spread it around to the world around us. So where are you today? Are you more like Rachel and Leah and Laban, looking out for themselves, trying to keep up with the Joneses, never satisfied with another thing? Doesn't matter how much you get, how much you have, you're never satisfied. When we worry, it takes away from the power of the Holy Spirit. When we're focused on other things than Jesus, we don't allow the Holy Spirit to work in our lives. When our identity is found in something other than Jesus, we don't allow the Holy Spirit to work in our lives. When our hope is found in something other than Jesus, you guessed it, we don't allow the Holy Spirit to work in our lives. You want to see real change in your life? You want to see something miraculous happen in your life? Stop letting Jesus just be a part of your life, and let Him be your life. I'm going to encourage you, wherever you're at, maybe you're in your car, maybe you're watching this at home, maybe you're at a coffee shop or somewhere else. I just want to say that if that's you, maybe you haven't even let Jesus be a part of your life, I want you to make that decision today. You can just say something simple like this: Jesus, I have never let you be in my life, be over my life. I've never given you my life. And Jesus, today, I understand that you died on the cross for me, and I want to give you my life. I want to give you lordship. I want to make you the king. I want to make you over my life. God, I'm repenting from what I've done. I'm turning towards you with my life. In Jesus' name, amen. If that's you this morning or evening or afternoon, whenever you are watching this, we want to know about it. You can fill out a little contact us card on the on our website. You just go to restorationtc.com. There's a contact info, and you can put in the drop down menu just saying hey, and let me know. I'd love to know. And secondly, if that's you, we've got baptism coming up on September 19th at 3:30 p.m. The address is right there on the screen if you can see it. We're going to have a baptism service, and if that's you, if you've never been baptized before, or maybe you have been baptized and you just never, I don't know, it didn't stick or something. Maybe you were baptized as a baby, you were sprinkled, you were something, and now you want to make this decision for your own. We encourage you to do so. Maybe you've rededicated your life to Christ and you want to get baptized again. We'll baptize you. September 19th at 3:30. Let us know that if you want to get baptized, and we will baptize you in Lake Michigan, right in the bay. So with that, thank you so much for listening. I know, again, we went over. I have a lot of content, and I'm online, and I don't have a time frame. So sorry, not sorry. We love you, and we will see you next time.